Kalimera, welcome to Greece. As you can probably see, we are in Athens, and as the capital city bustles away behind me, it is still recovering politically and economically from a decade of financial crisis. The economy has shrunk drastically, and more than 40% of under 25s are still out of work. However, if you look beyond the city to the fields and mountains, there are some green shoots of change. Thousands of young Greeks are turning to the land to try and make their future. As they do so, we are investigating in this programme whether it is still possible to make a decent living from farming in the Europe of today. In Brussels, the common agricultural policy that's been worth €2.7 billion to Greece since 2014 is being renegotiated for the entire continent. We're looking around Greece to France and Poland to find out how that money is being spent, whether it's being spent in the right places, and whether this new crop of farmers here in Greece can harvest a sustainable future. Let's first then head to meet Mike, the engineer turned part-time farmer.
I have 5 hectares of land. I've got 2 species. One is native to the island of Chios. The other one is from Mytilene. They don't normally mix. In total, I have 400 sheep.
And joining us here on the farm is Greece's alternate agriculture minister, Yannis Tsironis. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for being with us. Now, I know that last year you said that agriculture is Greece's future. What did you mean by that?
I mean that Greece now has more than 60% of its territory that it was rich before the war, and now, because mainly for political reasons, it is deserted. That means if we choose during the crisis to raise up something, it's better to raise this sector is in the low base. Instead of tourism is already high.
It is difficult for farmers to get loans from banks. The public-owned Agricultural Bank of Greece was sold to pay back Greece's creditors. Surely this is another problem. How can that be solved?
Of course, this action to sell the Agricultural Bank was a scandal. It's not a scandal because Agricultural Bank. Even the total agreement was, upon to me personally, a scandal. It was a low price for a big bank, and we sold only the good part of the bank, the good loans. That was, for me, is totally unacceptable, but it's done. That is done. Now we try to make a new bank, a new state bank that supports not only agriculture, but even also the other production of the society, also in the industrial production, all the good small ideas must be supported.
Well, how much of a problem is sort of fraud or various forms of corruption currently in the farming sector?
In the farming sector we had a lot of corruption, and I say that this corruption ruined also the cooperatives in Greece. Because cooperatives were totally clientelistic and totally related with the 2 big parties that governed Greece for the last 40 years.
Has that been broken?
Yes, it's broken. It's broken due to the crisis. Anyway, it's broken before us. But now we try to convince people, because they are afraid because of this, because they have a lot of debt and bankrupts, and to convince them that actually cooperative is the unique way to go out to big scales and have better price in the final to the client. Cooperative is the only solution for Greece, but must be health cooperatives. Cooperatives, they stick to the product, to the quality, and to the profit, and not stick to have relation with the parties.
Well, thank you very much for giving us your vision for Greece, for agriculture in the future. Yannis Tsironis, alternate agriculture minister here in Greece. And we're going to take a closer look now at how that return to the land is working out for people not just here in the Athens region, but all around Greece. Our reporter Luke Brown has been out to find out more.
Georgios left his job as a teacher 5 years ago to run this farm on the island of Orbea. Starting with just €500, now he's transformed the land, producing 7 tons of vegetables each year.
After 6 years, I can say that it's been worth it, because the farm has grown. It's become more dynamic, and I'm producing enough that I can finally earn a salary.
The number of farmers aged under 40 has increased 15% since 2009. Nikos is volunteering at the farm for a year to learn the basics. Greece's economic crisis pushed him to leave Athens.
The crisis for me was like a kick. It kicked me well, and I woke up and I saw what I wanted to do, really wanted to do, and what would provide me my living.
At the other end of the spectrum is Theodoros Vasilopoulos, a third-generation farmer. His family owns 600 hectares of olive trees in the Peloponnese. As president of the National Association of Young Farmers, he sees the newcomers as regenerating Greek agriculture.
They are improving the land that they're cultivating, and they're succeeding at it. Compared to the previous rounds of the European funding, there are almost twice as many young farmers applying for subsidies. That's a positive message. These young farmers can help the country's agricultural sector to become more dynamic over the coming years.
One issue that unites Greek farmers, large and small, is their resentment at high taxation. The state has nearly doubled income tax for farmers to over 20%. Until recently, the agricultural sector had been spared much of Greece's austerity. Now the government insists it is still supporting young farmers.
When it comes to farmers' spending on agricultural equipment, the VAT has been brought back down to 13%. And in the program of agricultural development from 2014 to 2020, we have already earmarked €200 million to help young farmers.
Antonis took up farming in 2012. His solution to make ends meet is selling directly to his customers, like at this organic restaurant in Corinthia. Direct sales like this, cutting out the middlemen, means more gain for small producers. He hopes it'll make his farm sustainable.
To live in Greece by cultivating, it is necessary to create stable, committed people that are consuming these products.
Greek agriculture is dominated by small farms. More than half are under 2 hectares. Christo and Fleury have spent the past 6 years creating an organic permaculture farm.
We like to attract bugs because they're useful for the garden. Everything has a reason, and it all adds up to the biodiversity of the place, which is so important.
When the couple left Athens, they were burnt out by their city careers in marketing and IT. And while the farm has proved a salvation, it isn't yet self-sufficient. They also run a guest house and host yoga courses. That now represents an important part of their income.
This has evolved to be the heart of the project, yes, because this is where most of the things happen. Together with the garden around it and the food that provides, it's a very important part of Evergreen. Without it, we cannot be what we are today.
Greece's economic recovery remains sluggish. Unemployment is still over 20%, meaning for now at least, farming remains an attractive proposition for many city folk desperate for an alternative.
Well, as Greece's new breed of farmers wait to see the fruits of their labours, we've come to this experimental vineyard at the Agricultural University of Athens, where we're also waiting for the vines to start flowering in a few weeks' time. While we wait, let's speak to Professor Kazimierz. Hello there.
Hello, welcome to Athens.
Thank you, very nice to meet you. Now, you've been a professor of rural sociology for more than 30 years, and you're currently working within the government. You're the main person, in fact, negotiating with Brussels about European funding for agriculture. If we look at this movement of back to the land that we've been talking about, do you see this as proposing a bright new future for Greece?
It may be. We have to work in that direction. The truth is that during the years of crisis, there was a kind of movement in the sense that a lot of people showed the interest to return to the land. Greece is a country where the ties with the land are very strong.
But do young people in Greece have the knowledge, the skills, the financial cushion? It does seem to us, from what we've seen and heard, that that's not always the case.
The people who show an interest to return to the land now are better educated, more innovative, more outward looking. And I think this is the ideal breed for a new age agriculture, in the sense that we need modern farmers in order to improve productivity.
Now, that is something that we have been hearing. However, developing these areas, surely it does take time. It's not going to be a very quick success or even a quick return financially.
Well, the interesting thing is that we already see results with regards to agriculture, in the sense that over the past years, agriculture has improved its performance in terms of productivity, in terms of exports. And what is interesting is that the exports are connected to what I defined as qualitative products. And that's where we have to invest and move as an agriculture in Greece. In other words, move towards a more qualitative identity, environmentally friendly agriculture.
Is there not a possibility that if Greece's economy starts doing better, that some of these people will abandon farming and say, I was trained as an engineer, an architect, I'm going to leave farming and go back to what I was trained in?
Well, the farming that these people do is not the farming of the past. The interesting thing is that these farmers, young farmers, are also involved in the processing of their products, in international markets. They are more innovative. In other words, they create added value, which of course implies a better income. That's the direction. I hope that we're going to have a more modernized agriculture, a more connected with other sectors of the economy, agriculture, and that will produce more results, not only for agriculture, but for the whole economy. And this is where we want to invest, and that's where we work. In that direction we work.
All right, thank you so much. It was really interesting to talk to you
about
the future, potentially, of agriculture here in Greece. And we've also been taking a comparative look at another European member state, Poland, which also receives a large portion of common agricultural policy funding each year. This from our correspondent there, Gulliver Cragg.
Wojciech Pytlewski runs a medium-sized farm by Polish standards, 62 hectares and 50 cows. The Common Agricultural Policy pays him €190 a year per hectare in direct subsidies. A dairy farmer in Germany would get €280. Unfair, says Pytlewski.
These payments are mainly compensation for profits lost in adjusting to the EU market. And so if we're part of that single market, then I think these subsidies should be the same for everyone.
Since joining the EU, Polish farmers' incomes have risen by 82%. But the cost of living and farming has also risen. Pytlewski is convinced that country life was happier in his grandfather's day, even if the family home, which he renovated 5 years ago, was smaller.
Back then, things were better. You had more time. There was a different atmosphere in the countryside. Today, everything is so intensive. You have to produce as much as possible just to earn a crust.
Currently, some 45% of Polish farmers' incomes come from subsidies. The EU average is 32%. The government has vowed to fight for CAP payments to be equalised across the Union. But Witold Piekarniak, an apple producer, says there's no point in just clamouring for more money.
Since we've been in the EU, there's undeniably been a civilisational leap forward in Polish farming. But just handing out money, that's not the best solution. And I think the EU is going to move away from that strategy of subsidies towards a focus on getting realistic prices for our produce.
Poland is the world's third largest producer of apples, but most of its growers are small family firms fighting a losing battle with supermarkets over pricing. The EU has helped them form larger collectives to make efficiency gains. 8 farms in this area now form one company, which built this warehouse with a grant from the CAP. Piekaniak is unequivocally grateful.
It has really transformed the technology of fruit growing in Poland. In these tanks, the oxygen level is around 2%, which allows us to keep the apples fresh until spring.
One problem with getting decent money, though, Piekaniak says, is that Western European countries avoid buying Polish apples by applying excessive quality control.
Supposedly we have a single market, but some Western European countries have found mechanisms by which to protect their own producers from it.
This problem has grown more acute since Russia banned imports of European produce in retaliation against EU sanctions over Ukraine. Russia was the main export market for Polish apples. With sales within the EU not picking up much of the slack, Polish producers are having to look for new markets in Asia and North Africa instead.
Well, it is time for us to say goodbye to sunny Greece and head back to France. We're going to be meeting European ministers there and the European Agriculture Commissioner as they shape the future of agriculture policy and funding. We'll see you just after the news.